Good morning to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Time to talk about Hurricane Dorian. I have a lot to cover today. I will pop in and out here on the screen. I like to see you in person, so to speak. Instead of talking at you, I like to talk to you. You can see, for what it's worth, my emotions, my gestures, how I'm looking, how I'm feeling, because that matters a lot. You know, I take this stuff very seriously, so I like to try to appear on camera when I can, but sometimes it's time to drop away and focus on what's happening with the situation. And that being said, let's start out with a look at the track chart here from the National Hurricane Center. Sure, you've seen this by now, but just to update it for you, Dorian forecast to move off to the west-northwest, northwest, etc., and then bend back to the west, with a landfall projected here of the core, the center, just east of Lake Okeechobee. And, you know, in terms of where that ends up being the exact point, we don't know for sure yet, but the cone of uncertainty here gives you an idea that two things are happening. One, that it's going to be moving towards the Florida Peninsula at a pretty steady pace. That's the 3-day cone right in here. But then the days 4 and 5, the cone is much larger. And that shows the uncertainty and the fact that it would be slowing down pretty dramatically, that by next Wednesday we could still be talking about this system just south of Orlando as a hurricane. And so the impacts here for Florida cannot be understated. This is going to be a devastating event, it looks like. It's not etched in stone yet. Still enough time for some things to happen that would maybe spare Florida, but those chances are going down. With each passing model cycle, it does appear. So we are going to talk about impacts and things that can help you understand the forecast better. That's part of today's update. This is going to be a pretty lengthy update, and so sit back and dig in, because here we go. So this is the 5-day forecast. Remember that the cone of uncertainty talks about where the center should be, not the overall effects. It doesn't tell you about the wind necessarily, even though they do have a wind. This represents the extent of tropical storm force winds, and there's a little burgundy color in there that are hurricane force winds. But this is just about where the center should be a certain percentage of the time it stays inside the cone. All right, so it's about the probability of where the center of circulation, in this case the eye, would be, I think, 67% of the time or something like that. This doesn't tell you about storm surge or rainfall and just the misery that's going to come with this. There should be a misery index as well. I am all about the impact. Okay, so I'm going to make this very clear, especially those of you that are just tuning into my channel on YouTube or discovering me on social media. I am a degreed geographer. I am a physical geographer. So I'm an earth scientist, but I'm not a meteorologist. It's not that I don't care about the math and the physics. I was more interested in what hurricanes do when they make landfall, and so I do have training in meteorology. Statistics is more of my thing, and processes that go into what makes hurricanes do what they do. Coastal erosion, storm surge, things like that. All of that wrapped into my geography degree from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, 1995, so a while back now. And so that's my focus, just wanting you to understand that, in case, especially if you're brand new to who is this Mark Sudduth guy. And so I'm going to talk about impacts and what you should do to learn more about finding out what those impacts will be or are projected to be. You never know until it actually happens, right? So the first product is the public advisory from the National Hurricane Center homepage. We all know this site. And you scroll down and you look over here and you see all this little information in this little dashboard here, the statistics on it, etc. But then the public advisory, and it's also in Spanish, in Espanol there, so that's available as well. But the public advisory has very good information, a summary of it in here, lat long, where it's located on a map, its direction, the wind speed, the pressure, etc. Watches and warnings, changes with the advisory, none right now. Right now, the only watch that's in effect is for the Northwest Bahamas, and that is a hurricane watch. This is the discussion and outlook, a brief summary. There is a more detailed discussion that we're going to go over in a minute. This next part is what I really want you to focus on. Hazards affecting land. Affecting with an A. What are the effects that will affect you? Funny how the English language works, but there you go. Wind is outlined, storm surge, rainfall, and it tells you where. This will start to expand and become more inclusive to include eventually Florida and elsewhere. Also, they talk about surf, because surf is an impact and a hazard. Swells will start radiating out, affecting east-facing shores of the Bahamas and the southeastern United States. This is important because what is this weekend coming up? It's Labor Day weekend, a horrible set of events unfolding here. The timing couldn't be worse. I mean, I guess it could be, but maybe July 4th. A lot of people are going to be heading to the beach, and they're going to get in the water. You're going to have these swells coming in. Lifeguards are going to have their hands full. Listen, I've done this long enough to know that these hazards are coming, and it's going to start with the energy in the ocean. Those swells are going to come in. Children, surfers, old people, young people, doesn't matter. Though that energy in the ocean is bigger than you are. So please, if they have a red flag on the beach and it's closed, don't swim. If you hear about in your local area lots of wave impacts going on, high surf, maybe a high surf advisory, it's very important to take each of these hazards extremely seriously because they can kill you. High surf, rip currents, etc., very, very serious, all right? So, and in some cases, the surf will kill more people in a hurricane than the wind does. Storm surge and freshwater flooding are still the leading causes of death. Wind usually doesn't kill people. It's very, very low. And the surf, though, yeah, absolutely. So please be careful out there. You can go to weather.gov. I'll talk about this more in future updates as things start to narrow down. But I'm giving you a broad overview from my years of experience as to where you can find very helpful information. And this box is your friend to help you start on that journey there, all right? So please take that into consideration as you go forward. Let's get rid of this tab. We'll get rid of me for a moment as well. All right? So the next product from the National Hurricane Center is the forecast discussion. This gets into the head of the forecaster, the person who wrote the advisory. And in this case, it's Berg, forecaster Berg. And he breaks it down with a quick summary of like the latest information and kind of like observations. And then you talk about the direction and the forecast through here, maybe some impact information, and then information about the track and intensity, etc. That's all wrapped into this, and it's very, very important, especially if you're really wanting to know the nuts and bolts of the system, that you read this. And this comes out 4 times a day, this product. The public advisory will now start to come out every 3 hours because they're going to do intermediate advisories. So if we start at 5 a.m., you'll get this advisory package here, the full advisory package. Another one at 6 hours later at 11 a.m., then 5 p.m., then 11 p.m., where you get the public advisory, the forecast advisory, which is for marine interest. It's got some computer-based language in it that computers can scrape information from, wind radii. It's more of a technical piece. And then the discussion here. These are all products that come out, the discussion especially, 4 times per day. All right? So the next discussion is 11 a.m. Eastern Time, then 5 p.m. Eastern Time. But the public advisory is going to now be every 3 hours. Sometimes they issue an update. If something breaking news type situation happens, they will issue updates, etc. But this discussion is very, very helpful. And I really encourage you to read this. And it has the key messages in here, and it has a summary of the wind forecast and the latitude, longitude over the next several days. And as you can see, it is forecast to increase to 140 miles per hour at 78.3, so about 120 miles or so, a little more than that, east of Florida, sitting at a strong Category 4 hurricane. That's very problematic. It goes without saying. All right, so these are the products from the Hurricane Center that I want to get you familiar with. Okay? I will refer to these, especially the discussion, once we go live, and I'm going to talk about that at the end here. All right? So I'm going to talk about this much more in the coming days. Now, on to some model stuff. Let's stop that motion for a second. This is from Alan Huffman, a meteorologist up in Raleigh, North Carolina. And this tweet is comparing the 12Z yesterday ECMWF ensemble tracks with the 0Z from last night. What does that mean? All right. The operational or deterministic models, GFS, ECMWF, UKMet, CMC, that's the Canadian, the JMA is the Japanese, and they go on and on and on. There's a lot of global models. They also have ensemble members. I use this reference a lot, that the deterministic model is kind of like the composer or the conductor. So the deterministic model of the Euro would be like Hans Zimmer or John Williams. The ensemble members are the orchestra that makes up the music to Star Wars or to Interstellar or whatever, Hans Zimmer reference. That put together is the whole package that we know as incredible film music. Do you understand? So the deterministic model is like your conductor, your main thrust, and then it has all these supporting members, and in this case with weather and music are not related, it's just an analogy. The ensemble members are variables where we get to see the what-ifs. The Euro has, I believe, 50, if you count the deterministic, 51 members of its ensemble package. So that is what all these little lines are in here. Okay? And then there's various intensities, scenarios. It's the way for the computer models to play that what-if game. What if the storm is a little weaker and the high pressure is a little stronger? Now let's see what we get. What if this happens? What if that happens? This is a way, and it helps to start to visualize uncertainty or, hopefully, consensus. That's what we want. We want the track, in the short term, when it's real tight like that, all those models are tightly clustered, and that means there's a pretty good consensus that over the short term there, next few days, 2 to 3 days, things are pretty stable. Not much mechanism in the atmosphere to make wild changes one way or the other. Later on in the forecast period, things do start to get more variable. Some of these members are taking it out to sea. And this is the run from yesterday. This is the 12Z yesterday. What is that Z? That's Zulu time, UTC, Universal Time, Greenwich Mean Time, whatever you want to call it. So for you and me, this is 8 a.m. that this was initialized. This is 8 p.m. This model is run, the main model, we're used to 12Z, 0Z, even though the Euro now has 6Z and 18Z. Whatever. I'm focusing on the two major synoptic runs of 12 and 0Z. Okay? So it was initialized 8 a.m. yesterday. That's what this shows. You notice, lots of the runs up here, well not lots, but 10 to 12 of them, the ensemble members were out to sea. Woohoo! All right. Well, as Mr. Huffman has done, he now compares it to 0Z last night. That's this one. Look what happened. Still, quite a few of the members up and out to sea over here, but a lot of them still back over here, and more of them again crossing into the Gulf of Mexico. And let's see, I need to refresh this, I believe, so I can get the GIF animation to play. So you see how that's working? It's tightening up a little bit more with this envelope right through here aiming towards South Florida. Still a number of members that are able to see a weaker ridge, maybe more trough interaction up here, whatever, and are trying to escape it out to sea, but that seems to be lessening overall. Here's another way to look at it. This is from the weather.us site, and this is the rainfall projections, and this is showing, well, really the precipitable moisture. And so the whoever runs their social media, Dorian's slow motion up the Florida Peninsula or the waters nearby will bring tremendous rainfall regardless of the core, the center, its exact track. Precipitable water forecasts from the Euro ECMWF show that the system is working with a lot of moisture. And that's the site that this is from. It's a subscription site, and it's tremendously helpful. Weathermodels.com. That's not my site, that's their site. So this shows the precipitable moisture. All of that red, and then the pinks and purples, etc. Really, really heavy rainfall spreading up the peninsula. This is the deterministic run. That one singular run of the Euro that I said is kind of like the conductor. That's that run right there. That's one output of the deterministic version of the European model. Right into Florida, up the peninsula with tremendous rain, but a very slow-moving system, suggesting that this area through here could see easily 20, maybe 30 inches of rain in some locations. So that's one impact that we really have to take into consideration. This is yet another way to visualize the European. All right? Alan Huffman, great job. Ben Knoll, another meteorologist from Auckland, New Zealand. That's the old European ensembles, and the black line is the Ensemble Mean. The average. You look at this, you go, well, all those tracks, can you just average it out? What's the average? Well, that's what the black line shows. The Ensemble Mean, that is yesterday. Okay? That's why it says old. This is from last night's run. As Ben Knoll says, new. So you see, it's slightly, we'll put it back into animation here, slightly more to the west with that overall bending of the envelope of all those models. More towards the west, meaning that the ridge would be just a little stronger. What is a ridge? I mean, we could go over this for hours. Think of a ridge of high pressure as a large water balloon in the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is fluid. And Dorian is a smaller water balloon. It's not a solid, it's also a fluid. And it's coming along and it's forced on that track south of the high pressure area, which is generally out here over the Atlantic. And there comes Dorian. The larger that ridge gets and expands, the more west Dorian goes. Energy coming down out of Canada in the upper Midwest, whoops, that's me, coming down this way, can try to erode the western side of that ridge. And if it does so before the energy lifts back out enough, if it erodes it enough, kind of chisels it away, then Dorian has an escape route. But it doesn't look like that's happening. And I have a few theories as to why. And real quick, come on, it's the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season coming up. The Atlantic itself, especially the northwest Atlantic, the waters up here are, let's see if I can get my pointer back, the waters up here are warmer than normal. There's a lot of reasons why that ridge seems to be strengthening, but that's what this is indicating. Not as strong of a ridge, a little bit stronger ridge, maybe less shortwave energy interaction on it, and Dorian is able to slide a little bit more to the west there. But that, as you can imagine, folks, 50 miles more west or whatever it is gigantic in terms of who gets impacted. You keep the core of a Cat 4 hurricane. You remember Matthew, except for the coming up out of the Caribbean part that Matthew did, and then it made that turn. This is a very similar track to Matthew in 2016, but I fear it's going to be a whole heck of a lot stronger coming into Florida, because it's the peak of the hurricane season, not in October when Matthew was. All right, so that's another way to visualize it. Now, the GFS, the Global Forecast System, the U.S. deterministic model, also has ensemble members, okay? and it has 20 of them. And this is a hodgepodge right here. And if you know your geography, you know that the Florida Peninsula is buried right in there. So almost all of the ensemble members bring it real close to Florida. There's some that are in the offshore waters, but what I want to show you, and this is from the 0Z run last night, look at all, let's just outline Florida. Florida would be like right in here, like that. There's Florida. And look at all of these ensemble members that are now out into the Gulf of Mexico. That could be significant. Is the ridge getting stronger in the modeling? As we go through time, upper air data is sampled by sending weather balloons from the Weather Service all around the country into the upper atmosphere to get a profile of it in the vertical. And as time goes on, those observations get fed into the models, and the models come back and say, here's what we're seeing, the numerical models. And they may be seeing a little bit of a stronger ridge in last night's run. So we do have a lot of these ensemble members over here, that go pretty far to the west. And a pretty sharp turn, though. What you're not seeing in the GFS anyway is this track up into here, like a broader track. This is a pretty sharp turn in the overall envelope there, and that's going to be something to watch as well. So the red is the ensemble mean, and we can see that better, thank goodness, through all that mess. On this chart, the AEMI, which I will highlight here in yellow, that's this right through here roughly. That's the average of all those ones I just showed you. So that's taking it across. The average mean, that's what that means. The average ensemble mean there of the GFS is across Florida and into parts of the Big Bend. But don't let that freak you out in the Big Bends necessarily. That's taking an average of all those models, and that's what it would show. That gets put into the weight of the overall. Think of it as like a vote, okay? That gets put into the weight of the consensus models. You take the means of the various models, and through supercomputers, I guess, and some very smart people, maybe that's why I have a degree in geography, because I couldn't handle all that math. Then you get the consensus, all right? And there are versions of that. It gets very complicated. So these different models have different weights that they get put into. The UK Met, the Euro, the GFS, the three bigger, more robust, reliable models. Canadian model has improved recently for cyclone, tropical cyclone forecasting, etc. All of this gets taken into consideration. That's my point. Overall, significant threat to the Florida Peninsula seems to be increasing, even if ever so slightly, from yesterday, going back to this, old, new, yes, I think it's increasing. All right? So, one last thing here, intensity. Right now, Dorian will pass eventually, today, like soon, through this little dip right here. In fact, you know what? Let me zoom in all the way tight. This is the upper ocean heat content, and this gives us an idea of the energy that is in the ocean. It's not sea surface temperatures. This is the upper ocean heat content. And the best way for me to describe this, you have at the surface 80 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. That's what you need to get a hurricane usually. If that 80 degree water goes down, it's 80 degrees, 200 meters deep, that can provide a lot of energy in the subsurface, that when the hurricane is churning up that ocean, it's just churning up more warm water. It doesn't churn up colder water that begins to sap its energy. You understand that? So these colors are showing, in essence, that the warm water starts to go really deep. There's a lot of energy in it. The richer these colors become. That's the best way to look at it. So less ocean heat content here, more here, more here, a lot right there. And so what's going to happen, Dorian is going to pass over this little area today, and it may hold steady, maybe weaken a little bit. It might fluctuate. But from there on out, the bad news is, as it makes that turn, presumably towards Florida there, that track through there, what do you see? Very high ocean heat content right up to the coastline. That is extremely important. It's not like up here off the coast of the Carolinas where you have, let's just pretend that a hurricane was coming across and was going to go into eastern North Carolina like that. It leaves the high ocean heat content a little bit before landfall in this scenario, the pretend hurricane. And, you know, maybe not enough time for it to weaken or whatever, but that ocean heat content of those high values, as an example, does not go right up to the coast. In the case of South Florida here, it does. It's interesting because in Mexico Beach last year, the high ocean heat content didn't matter. It wasn't like it went right up to the coast. That's a totally different story. Sometimes you don't need it because the atmosphere seemed to be perfect, and Michael made it to Category 5. So there's a problem. Michael made it to Cat 5 last year, and it came into an area where the ocean heat content right at the shore was not like it was off the coast of Florida. The Florida heat content was higher. Well, they were both Florida, the peninsula. And I'm not trying to frighten you, but I got to be realistic. Michael made it to Cat 5 over marginal heat content. Dorian is going to have some of the highest heat content in the Southwest Atlantic. A little higher there in the Florida Straits, and the Gulf Stream goes through there. This is, I mean, sometimes you have to say, look, it's going to be bad, and you have to accept it and do something about it. And this is one of those times, I don't hype anything, but this is one of those times where I have the old GTFO, and I'm not going to tell you what that means because there's an expletive in there, but when authorities tell you to leave in a situation like this, you need to GTFO. You seriously do. Because that high ocean heat content right up against the coastline where millions of people live could spell a major disaster if this comes barreling in. And the fact that it would be slowing down over high ocean heat content where the Gulf Stream runs through is even more problematic because it can slow down, and usually that means that it'll upwell water. But two things, the ocean heat content is high, and the Gulf Stream is running it underneath the hurricane at a couple of knots or whatever it is. It's moving, so it's a conveyor belt of more warm water all the time. That is a problem. So if they tell you to get out, your local officials, you need to leave. Mobile homes, structures that are just not good in a hurricane, and if you know that, you need to go when they tell you to go. Seriously. I need you to stay alive. That is the first task, is to keep you alive and keep you safe. Property, hey, it is what it is. That's a whole story for another day. It's very, very disconcerting what's coming, but that's a look at the ocean heat content. Now, I want to talk about coverage. What am I going to do? I'm sitting here talking to you from my office in Wilmington, North Carolina. What am I going to do in the field? That is what I am really known for. Myself and my team members, different crew members have helped out over the years. Right now, I will be working with my partner Brent. He is from St. John in the USVI. Tony Bright, who's also from Wilmington, and maybe others. Derek Thompson, a colleague of ours coming down from South Dakota. I need some water. Pardon me. Got to save the voice. Carrie Mallory, one of our colleagues over in Houston, might be joining us. We got to figure a lot of things out, a lot of logistics, but we're going to have a crew, and our goal is to keep you informed. I will be doing these updates here from my office today. I'll do another one this evening, late this afternoon or evening, and then tomorrow morning we're going to hit the road. Now, we no longer have that vehicle right there. That's the old Chevy Tahoe. After 430,000 miles, I retired it in early 2018, and we have a rental vehicle now. We never got a new Chevy, a new vehicle, whatever. I really don't need one. It's just more efficient and economical to rent a vehicle. I mean, unless somebody donated one, which is great, we just rent them. So we have actually a Tahoe. It turned out to be a Tahoe, and we're going to load it up with equipment. We're going to have unmanned cameras. Do I have one sitting in here? No, I don't. Excuse me. My voice is going to try to go, so I got to wrap this up. We're going to put out unmanned cameras. We're going to put out weather sensors, these high-end anemometers and pressure sensors, and we're going to spread it out like a net in front of Dorian. And we are going to capture and stream live incredible video and data. I'm a big data guy. Remember I told you part of my degree is in statistics. I love the data. I want to capture the visual impacts, what we can see and hear, but I also want to capture the meteorological data that could be very helpful on a lot of levels. And we're going to do that through the use of these unmanned camera systems, both live streaming and our GoPro cams. Now, what do they capture? I'm going to just show you this real quick. This is from last year, Hurricane Michael in Mexico Beach, Florida. We had a live camera and this GoPro. This is from the GoPro footage, and a lot of you have seen this already. This is right when things started to ramp up. This is from our unmanned camera. We're not sitting there. We strapped it to a utility pole using a ratchet strap. The GoPro is inside of a military spec case. It's got a battery that powers it for a long time, and it's all strapped down to a wooden utility pole. This is when things started to ramp up. Things are starting to ramp up even more, even more, even more, even more. You get the idea. This is what it's probably going to look like on the Florida Peninsula as Dorian comes ashore. That's a Category 5 hurricane you're looking at right there. Michael, last year. No way to know what the winds are. Even if we had an anemometer in that shot, it would have been destroyed. All that flying debris that's in there, the surge, and as it goes on, it's as violent as you can fathom, and even beyond that. Every time I see this, it's just unbelievable. And you're looking at storm surge there, the building moving across the street, you name it. That is what we use our unmanned cameras for. Because I am not going to sit out on the beach in a vehicle filming that. You think I'm crazy? Forget that. That's what we have the cameras for. So, and as it moves along, you saw what happened in the end. There you go. That was Mexico Beach. And our system worked. And we recorded something that nobody has ever seen before like that. And we lived to tell about it. Here I am. So we're going to deploy even more of that. Why? Because of this right here. Crowdfunding. Let me get rid of me for a second. I'm going to talk about crowdfunding because that's how it's paid for, but also how you can view it yourselves. This is my job. So for me to earn a living, I need to be able to have an income. And that is provided more now than ever before through crowdfunding, and we call it Patreon. It is a system set up for creators of film, music, podcast, animation, blogging, whatever. Those are the creators. There are some weather people on there, notably yours truly. Levi Cowan, Tropical Tidbits, is a Patreon creator. The weathernerds.org site also, and there are some other storm chasers as well. I'm on Patreon. It is a great way to aggregate everything that I do into a site that is very similar to Twitter, Facebook, and HurricaneTrack.com wrapped up into one package. Patreon has their own app, so everything goes into that, Android and iOS. It's great. We have an app, but it's not working very well right now, so I'm not even going to talk about it. It's a very disappointing thing. Our app has been extremely difficult to keep up and running. It's very costly. We're going to put the cameras in the app. For those of you that have the app, don't even ask me what it is because I'm not going to tell you because I don't want you to buy it. And I need to actually yank it off the app in the Google Play Store before I leave. It's just having issues and it's too costly. But Patreon works great. And it's a way for me to post content. So you look down here, you got these posts. You know, I can post plans, maps. You know, they almost look like tweets. Some of them are like blogs. Some of them are public. There's my videos. And there are different tiers, different sections of funding, you know, from $1 a month all the way up to more than $100 if you want to, if you're capable. But the $10 a month tier right there is the level that grants you access through your email address that we will log you in to our HurricaneTrack Insider site. They're connected, and that's where everything is in this beautiful digital dashboard when it's all up and running. That's where all that will be. The $10 tier is what it takes, all right? And $10, I mean, come on, you're helping to fund what I'm doing, and I hope that you'd stick around, and you can even reduce it down to $1, a month. Don't just abandon me and, oh, I just wanted to see the hurricane and that's it. We're doing stuff year-round, and we're working on a new series for next year, and I'll talk about that at a later time. My point is, it's more than just an event. It's not a pay-per-view. This is very serious. You're helping to fund what we're able to do. And that video from Michael is because people supported what we're doing. Now, I do license my video to the Weather Channel, the exclusive media partner, globally, and they fund what I do as well. But that's not a permanent thing, and that's hurricane season usually only. This is year-round and monthly, and I really appreciate the people that have signed up because you are making this possible. So back to YouTube for a second. The plan is, tomorrow morning, Brent and I will leave Wilmington, probably with Tony following us. I got to talk to Tony about that. We will start streaming live from our vehicle. You will be able to ride along with us, and that is going to be available to 100% of anybody that tunes in through YouTube, free. I don't want to charge money if I don't have to. So the YouTube feed from the truck, free for everybody, and you may share it with everybody in the world. I don't care. YouTube can handle it. The cameras we put behind the paywall. That's what it is to help fund what we're doing. It's that simple. It's not a money grab. This is my business. This is what I do. You watch the Weather Channel, you watch your local news, they have commercials that fund what they do. I don't want to have commercials and have to deal with sponsors. I mean, sponsors are great, don't get me wrong, but I would rather everything be uninterrupted and commercial free, and it's crowdfunded. How friggin' awesome is that? So I appeal to you, certainly, to help support what we're doing through Patreon. They got the app, which works better than my app, and I will be posting to it extremely frequently. And those that are on there now, I have done exactly what I said I was going to do, and I enjoy every minute of it. I feel this connection to people more than you will ever know. So, and just to give you an idea, Gina here down in Miami signed up yesterday for the $1 tier. Oh, and by the way, you can adjust your tiers. $10 now, $1 later, $3 later, $25 later. If we need a boost, whatever, it's flexible. Patreon is absolutely incredible for that. So that being said, Gina says, Mark, thank you for the note, because I try to thank everybody that signs up if I can. Time can be a constraint as we go forward, so we'll see. You'll eventually hear from me, though. I will thank you personally. And thanks for all you do. You're pitched to say that even $1 is helpful, and that is absolutely true. It all adds up. And if you just had that from followers, you could do even more. So here I am. I look forward to upgrading. I'm in Miami. I grew up plotting storms on the maps with my parents. That's what I did, too, the paper maps. And in fact, I produced those way back in the early part of my career. And I love, and I have a love for all the information we get now, and you continue to feed my need for information and make me smarter all the time. I don't know Gina. I just met her through this email exchange. That is a great testimony. And so if just a quarter of my social media followers pledged $1 a month and stayed with us, we would be able to do more than you could possibly imagine. And we're actually going to be able to do that for Dorian, honestly, because what we're getting ready to do, and I'll be posting videos on Patreon to show you our setup and all that, it's going to change hurricane understanding again. We did it during Michael, and our work is, and Florence too, I don't want to leave Florence out. Coming up on a year since that, right here in Wilmington and elsewhere. But we really did change things with what we did, especially in Michael, proving that the technology could show us stuff we've never seen before. It's being used in FEMA, Weather Service, training videos, public service announcements, even different law firms contacting me to use the video to help them understand against insurance companies that say it was all surge. It can be helpful. Sometimes it is all surge. But sometimes the wind does the damage first, and we're able to provide the evidence either way. You know, we're not against insurance companies. We just want things to be fair. And the video provides it's objective. It's very objective. Unedited. All right? It's the real deal. Unfiltered. That's the word I'm looking for. So Patreon, YouTube, live from the vehicle, and we're going to set up a network of cameras and instruments that'll be unprecedented. And it's true, because we now have all the equipment thanks to you guys. People have purchased these battery packs for us and sent them to us. We got more than we need. Thank you very much. Those are $130 each, and those power our equipment. We're going to tackle this, and we're going to do the best job possible. We might even launch our weather balloon into the eye. If we have a chance to do so safely, we will see. A lot going on with it. I did not even discuss the possibility of this coming up into the Carolinas or Georgia yet, because I don't know enough to discuss that part yet. 5 days from now, it should be over the Florida Peninsula, somewhere south of Orlando. 7 days from now, I don't know. I don't have the foggiest idea of where it could end up. All those impacts. So I will say this. Yes, it's a possibility that Georgia, the Carolinas, and beyond could see some impacts from Dorian down the road. But we don't know enough yet for me to give you any intelligent information about what to do. Yeah, prepare, get some gas cans, do a few things if you're in the Carolinas, but don't freak out. I don't want anybody freaking out. Freaking out's not helpful. A skillful plan of attack is. And if you're in South Florida where this is headed, the cone of uncertainty in your area, especially when the watches go up, you need to take action. At the end of the day, I want you alive. If you're not on the other side watching me, I might as well not be here. So we got to keep you safe, got to keep you informed, and I want to make you smarter, like Gina talked about in that email. All right, I am done. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you learned a few things. Share the video. Fine, great. That's what YouTube's all about. They can handle it. So sure, share this with anybody you wish. It's fine. And again, the plan will be to start going live tomorrow morning, unless something comes up and we have to leave tonight or something, but should be tomorrow morning. And I will post another video update here later this afternoon or this evening. I don't know exactly when yet, but it will be posted. They go on Patreon and our HurricaneTrack.com insider subscription site first, and then about 15 minutes later, I make them public. And just one last thing, I know that some people can't even pledge $1. I understand that. You might be, I'm not old enough to pledge $1. I'm not economically in the position to pledge $1 or more. I get it. These videos are always going to be available to the public at no cost. All right? And I just put a little delay on them to give them to our supporters first as a token of my appreciation. It's a little bit of a benefit. But these videos will never be locked down to where you cannot access them. Never going to do that. Even if we're making $1 million a month. All right? That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Have my own Hurricane Hunter plane. Listen, very serious. I appreciate you tuning in. A lot to consider. Good luck to you all. If you have questions, hit me up on social media. I will do the best that I can. While we're driving, and I'm live with the camera right there in the car, we'll be able to talk to you. And that's going to be incredible. All right, I need to sign off because I keep talking and I get myself in trouble. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. That's the site, the brand, been around for 20 years now. Thank you all for your support along those 20 years. This is what it's all about, getting ready for an epic field mission, unlike anything else that anybody in the world is doing, and you're going to be a part of it. I thank you, and I will talk to you again tonight.